One or two of them have probably got the same feeling in their stomachs that you and I have got this morning, that kind of tension, that slight sicky feeling. Look, England have been here before, and a lot of the senior players in this squad will know this feeling very, very well. The likes of Jordan Pickford, Harry Kane, who we heard from there, John Stones, of course, Kieran Trippier. This will be their third semi-final in a major tournament in the last 4 major tournaments, which is an extraordinary record. So they'll know what it feels like. But I was thinking about Kobbie Mainoo this morning, the 19-year-old who only turned 19 in April, only made his Premier League debut for Manchester United in November. This is incredibly new for him, and I expect him to start for England tonight in a semi-final against the Netherlands. How is he feeling this morning in this hotel behind me? Now, clearly, you can see the England team bus behind me. This is where they're staying. It's a little bit out of Dortmund. We're not giving anything away about where they are because they'll be following their usual schedule this morning. They'll be getting up. They've had some breakfast. They will try and go for a bit of a walk if the rain holds off. There are thunderstorms forecast, by the way. And then they'll have an activation session, as they call it, where they get the muscles going. They do some stretching. They'll have some lunch, they'll have a team meeting later on, they'll talk through the tactics again. Then they'll have some downtime before they head to the stadium, an hour and a half or so before kick-off. And that's when it'll feel very real for them, isn't it? That's when they'll see those huge hordes of Netherlands fans in their orange. And England will be heading for a moment of history. I mean, you heard Harry Kane and the manager talk about it there. They're not hiding from it. They know this is not just a normal game. They know this is a momentous game, potentially, which could take England through to their first final of a major tournament on foreign shores. So they've got quite a lot of hours to while away between now and then, but it will be the usual schedule. That's what Gareth Southgate will do. Nothing different, what they always do, to try and make it feel as normal as possible.
Yep, just looking at my giant clock to the right-hand side now, 9 hours, 54 minutes, 38 seconds to go. Rob, we know there'll be strong support for the Dutch there tonight. It's about 60 miles to the border from there, isn't it? Is the atmosphere, even at this early stage, beginning to build?
It's a bit further than that, Rob, actually. I've checked it out, exactly 102 miles from the stadium to the Netherlands border. But as you say, that's very, very close. And we're expecting an orange invasion, quite simply. For the first time in this tournament, England's fans are almost certainly going to be outnumbered by their opposition, both in the city and in the stadium as well. 80,000 Dutch nationals are reportedly heading towards the city for this game. They've not all got tickets, of course. But that will be quite a scene when they do their march to the stadium. We've seen the pictures on social media. We've shown them to you on Sky Sports News. They are a very colourful and emphatic show of support for their nation, aren't they? Look, there were 1 or 2 problems in the city centre of Dortmund last night. We arrived quite late, so we didn't see it. And by trouble, I don't mean any necessary violence or anything like that, but because of the threat of those thunderstorms that I mentioned, UEFA decided to close the fan park here in Dortmund literally minutes before Spain against France in the other semi-final kicked off. The fan park was packed. There were about 6,500 Dutch and English and other nationalities in there, and they were all evacuated pretty quickly. So that was far from ideal, but of course UEFA felt safety was the most important with thunderstorms in the area. But by all accounts, I think Dortmund is going to be a real carnival today. It's going to be absolutely packed for one of the biggest events on the footballing calendar.
Yeah. OK, let's get to the team for tonight's game. Now, you aren't expecting Luke Shaw to start. Why?
He's not ready. That's the message I'm getting from my sources. I mean, we broke the news to you on Sky Sports News last night. We've been talking about it for several days, haven't we? The big decision that Gareth Southgate had to make at left wing-back. I fully expect him to stay with the same formation, by the way, the 3 centre-backs. He thought that worked well against Switzerland in the quarter-final. It probably was England's best performance in the tournament so far, and yet they didn't have a shot on target until Bukayo Saka equalised on 80 minutes. So there's still positives and negatives there for England as they've got through to this later stage in the tournament. But yeah, I think the issue is that Luke Shaw adds some natural width. He's England's only left-footed defender in the squad. Southgate wanted to have him up and running earlier in this tournament. The plan was to play him in the second group game against Denmark. Then he had a setback, and that's cost England, and it's cost Gareth Southgate so far. He got 42 minutes, didn't he? Longer than was expected in the last round, in the last quarter-final, when he came on as substitute. But I think Southgate is feeling that he can't go 90 minutes yet. That would be a huge ask for a player who hadn't played any competitive football since the middle of February. So he's going to stick with Kieran Trippier, I expect. That's what my sources are telling me to expect. And Southgate's been talking Trippier up. As I say, this will be his third semi-final that he's played for England in the last 4 major tournaments. He's Mr. Reliable. He is defended very, very well. And yes, some pundits have said because of his lack of a natural left foot, he's not bombing down the wing and offering as much wide in attacking areas. That's true. But when you look at Denzel Dumfries, the rampaging wing-back that Netherlands have got, and how far he gets forward, Trippier's defensive nous could be absolutely key against him. So I think that's something that Southgate's got in the back of his mind. So we thought that was the big selection dilemma, and we think it's answered. We think the England manager is going to go with Trippier ahead of Luke Shaw. OK, the other dilemma is at the heart of the defence. Guéhi to come back in for you? Yeah, I think he will. I think that's exactly what will happen, and he'll come into a new system, won't he? Because he was suspended for that last match in the quarter-final, having picked up 2 yellow cards. And Ezri Konsa deputised for him with his first start in a major tournament, and I thought the Villa man did brilliantly. Bear in mind that that's not how Aston Villa play with a back three. He's only played that formation 3 times, and the last time for his club he did, it was before Christmas. So he adapted very, very well, and I thought he was outstanding. But Marc Guéhi has been probably even more outstanding over a longer period in the previous games in the tournament. For me, England's most consistent player, certainly their best defender. And so I don't think it's any surprise that Guéhi will come straight back into the starting 11. In fact, as I'm being told, that could well be the only change that Southgate makes from the side that got through on penalties against Switzerland in the quarter-final. Yeah. It is an opportunity for the England's men's side to reach a first major final outside of England. Just how big an opportunity is this? It's huge. This is where England players make their names. This is where they make history. And that's what Southgate and Kane were talking about in the news conference last night. I think it was significant in that news conference that Gareth Southgate talked about a change in mentality. He accepted that England players were gripped by fear at the start of the tournament, were the words that he used. But he says they've now banished their demons and they've bonded over beers and Ed Sheeran. That's the sort of atmosphere that Southgate tries very hard to create in camp, and it matters when you get to this stage. And he says he's seen a sea change in the belief and the confidence levels and the expectation amongst themselves. They felt the pressure in the early stage of the tournament. But he doesn't think that's there anymore. But there are still positives and negatives, aren't there? If you look at the facts, England haven't won a game in 90 minutes in this tournament since they beat Serbia in the opening game, right at the very start of the tournament. That's a huge negative. But one of the big positives, they've shown real character to get through very difficult circumstances to get this far. Think of Jude Bellingham's 96-minute overhead kick in the last 16. Think of winning on penalties with those 5 perfect penalties while King captain taker Harry Kane was standing on the sidelines watching. That's what happened in the quarter-final. That's galvanised this squad. It's given them a belief and a momentum going to this stage of the tournament. Will that be enough to overcome a really spirited and brilliant individual group of players in the Netherlands team? A Netherlands team which, again, is probably like England underperformed so far in this tournament. Well, we'll see later on, won't we? But for me, there are big players on both sides, big reputations on both sides. Whichever of those big players steps up tonight could take their team all the way through to a Euros final on Sunday against Spain.